Hello everybody, welcome to another session of SwiftUI Tutorials. This is going to be our Chapter 1, Part 2, SwiftUI Essentials, and we're going to be building list and navigations here. So we have the basic landmark details view set up, and we're going to provide a way for people to see a full list of landmarks and click into them to see those details about that location. So we're gonna generate a dynamically scrolling view for a user, and with that list, we're gonna be able to click a detail view of landmark. And we're gonna be fine-tuning the UI for different sizes of devices. Okay, with that, let's download the project file. This is going to give us some JSON files, and these JSON files will be used to populate our list. So we do need these. Okay, once we have downloaded those items, let's get into our first section, creating a landmark model. So what is a model, right? A A model is a way for us to store the data from JSON and present it in a way for our views to see. So here in this description below, it says in the first tutorial, you hard-coded information into all of your custom views, and you've created a model here you will create a model to store the data, and you can pass that into your views. So then we'll use the completed project from a previous tutorial and the resources available here to populate these landmark models. So anything, if anything, we are not going to be using Swift data, core data, to be doing any persistence here, generating our own particular models, but we'll be using preloaded JSON files for that. I think that this is a tangent. I think we'll be doing that in a future video. All right, so first things first, I'm going to drag the landmark data JSON into the from the download resource folder into the navigation page and copy items as needed. All right, let's see how that's done. So here we go. Let's grab our item here. Let's grab our finder. This is where we've downloaded the item. These are resources. This is our data. Let's drop it in right here. Copy if needed, finish. All right, where is it? Oh, that's not the right place. Okay, there it is. Okay, with that, okay, onward to step 2, create a new file called landmarks.swift. This will be holding our model data, I believe. So we're going to define the landmark structure with a few properties matching the name of some of the keys in the landmark data.json data file. We'll be also adding codable conformance, which makes it easier to move data between the structures and a data file. You'll rely on decodable components or codable protocols later in the section to read the data from files. So here you can see that we have the codable protocol that we have subscribed to. And what this does for us, it allows us to convert from JSON to model data more easily. If time allows, we can go more deeply into that. But here, it's going to be pretty self-explanatory. Every piece of data is a codable piece of data, and it knows exactly how to, I guess, retrieve and populate that data here. Another thing is that it's hashable, which means it's identifiable. So it has an ID that it makes it, there's no conflicts, collisions in the hash table. All right, let's go take a look at that JSON file and go into it a little bit more. So as you can see, here is the JSON file. It's a pretty straightforward file where every piece of data is, well, except for the coordinates, is in a form of string to string or string to int, string to boolean here. It's pretty straightforward. That's our data, and we're going to be creating a file we're going to do a command N to make a new file. This is a quick way of doing it. We're going to do a Swift file, right? And we're going to call it landmark. This is our way of holding the model data. And we're going to doing a struct of hashable and codable with ID, name, park, state, and description. So struct landmark. We're going to hashable and we're going to do codable. So with that, we're going to do a var. What we want to do is let's display this on a new window. So maybe that's not the best idea, but oh, that is definitely not the best idea. So let's rethink that. Let's click this button. We're going to add another screen here. And this particular screen, what we're going to do with that is set the JSON data. And that way we're going to have the ID type int. We're going to have our name type string. We're going to have, I believe they wanted us to get the city and states, right? We're going to check this a little later. And we want the park. This is our starting data that we will be pulling from the JSON file. Let's check that out. So I think we added 2 extra things and missing 1 thing. We're missing a description and we added the city, which we don't need. And we have the description. So as you can see, these are word for word the same variable as this particular variable here. Okay, with that, we're moving on to step 4, which is to model the image associated with each landmark. So we're going to pull these images from our resource folder and add them into our assets. Let's do that. Here is our Xcode. Here are our assets. This is the assets folder. This is where we put Turtle Rock. Let's go to our Finder. This is our downloads. Let's grab those resources, images, copy these, and store it in here. Great. Okay, next step, we're going to add an image name here, property, to read the name of the image from the data, and compute image property that loads an image from the assets catalog. So essentially, we have an image name that will be pulled from our JSON, and we will load that image using the image function. And we need to import the SwiftUI library to be able to make that image available. Okay, so let's make that happen. So private var image name, as you can see, this is right down here, image name, and it is type string. And we're going to have var image, and it's going to be a computed property of image. So we're going to import SwiftUI, and computed property is going to return an image. So image of image name. I think that's good. So this auto returns because it's the only line of code inside this computed variable. Okay, with that, let's move on to step 6. Add a coordinate property to the structure using a nested coordinate type that reflects the storage in the JSON data. So it looks like doing this, we'll be able to pull the JSON data directly without having too much mangling the JSON file. So you mark this property as private because you use it to create a public computer property in the next step. Okay, so let's create that coordinate system. Let's pull that coordinate and make sure that we create that struct so that we have an easy time pulling it. So struct coordinate, and we're going to make it hashable just like before and codable. And with a coordinate, we have longitude and latitude. So var longitude of type, it looks like a double. What exactly do you have? Double. And var latitude of size double. With that, we're going to do a var coordinate of type coordinate. Of course, this is going to be private, and we're going to create a computer property now. Let's see. A computer property called location coordinate is going to be created, and we'll be pulling this from our map kit framework. It looks like we're using core locations instead here. That's interesting. Let's see what that means. So we're going to import the core locations. So this is a module. Let's learn about it. Okay, there's a lot to learn. So provide services that determine a device drive. Oh, how do you do that? It's you hit the options button and you'll be able to do this. You pull up this information. So gathers all the information, components, Wi-Fi, GPS, Bluetooth, cellular information, where we are. Okay, very good. And we're going to be able to create a CL location coordinate 2D, which we will need to use to populate the data in the map kit, apparently. So let's do that. So var location coordinate. Do a 2D location. What is it called? CL location coordinate 2D. And it's a computer property again. So CL location 2D coordinate with a latitude and longitude. And what we're going to put into it, it's going to be coordinate, not latitude or longitude, or latitude, and coordinate dot longitude. With that, we have that part of our code completed. And we're ready for step 8. Okay, onward to step 8. Create a new Swift file in your project and name it model data. Okay, that seems like a pretty simple task. New file, Swift model data. Create. Okay, so what do you want in this model data? What we're going to do is create a load function with a method that fetches JSON data with a given name from the app main bundle. The load method will rely on return type conformance to decodable protocols, which is one component of decodable protocol. So let's read this code. So this is going to be a function that loads a generic type that is of type decodable protocol, and using a parameter of a string, and we will return this particular type. So we're going to return, let's say in our case, landmark. Okay, so let's code that in first. Okay, here we are. Let's type in that function. We're going to call it load with generic type of decodable. Then we're going to take in the parameter of type string. We're going to call this a file URL. And lastly, we're going to return type of type generic T. So we need to return, let's see, we're going to get the data. Oh, it's file name. And we're going to get this particular file from this file name URL. We should just call this file URL, but I guess they want to call it file. So let's go through that. So let data is data, and we're going to do this as file name. Do a guard let file equals URL dot bundle. Wait, exactly what it is. So bundle.main.url. Let's see what that's all about. So bundle. So it is a representation of code and resources stored in a bundle directory on this. So this is how you get items from your disk. So for extension, I think this is for resource, and this is type string. So we're going to do file name here, and extension is nil. So that's the guardlet. Else we're going to create a fatal error that we couldn't find the file name in our main bundle. So that's why it's called a bundle. So else return fatal error. Could not find file name in main bundle. All right, that's our first guard statement. Let's do our second guardlet statement. So this is going to be our data. So we're going to try to get the data of this file. Let's see what that looks like. And you just type in file. Is that it? Contents of. I wonder what that's all about. Let's see. Contents of file. It is a file URL. So I think it's more accurate that we just type in file URL instead. Let's do that instead. So this just creates a file URL out of a string. So as you can see, it creates a URL. This try data takes the contents of the URL and creates data out of it, right? And we do a do catch, actually. Do. So I wonder why we're doing a do catch here. So we do a do catch and a fatal error as well. So fatal error could not load, probably. I think that's file name from main bundle, and then we get the error. So that way I think we get the error from the fatal error from the catch. All right, lastly, what's going to happen here is we're going to do another do catch, and we're going to parse this file. So do let decoder equals decoder JSON decoder specifically, and we're going to return decoder not decode. We do a try dot decode. So we're gonna take a decode type. Type is of course going to be a t.self, and the data is going to be our data. Else, catch. What we're catching here is a fatal error. Could not parse file name, and as type t.self, and we get an error. And with that, we have completed our load function. Looks good. So onward to step 10, let's initialize an array of landmarks. So we create landmarks and we load the JSON data. So var landmarks equals load of, well, it doesn't know what to load yet. So we do need to do this particular typing, landmark, and we're gonna load. Now the load function works. I think it takes in a string. Our string is landmark data, and that's it. So I do have a question here though, because our load function returns a generic type of t. So we take the file name, and what we're doing here is a generic type of an array of landmarks, and so that's what we're trying to return here. Okay, and that's why it is effective here. Okay, with that, I hope that answers all the questions for this portion of the code. And I think it's time to move on to step 11 and group the files together to make it easier to manage your growing project. So what's going to happen is we're going to put our content view, map view, and circle image into views, model data and landmark into model data and landmarks into a model folder, and resources will be landmark data. Let's do that pretty quickly. So let's select these two. We're going to create a new group from selection, and we're going to call this model. Not model. One way to change that quickly is to go into the inspector and remove that. We're going to set this as our resource. That's pretty buggy. And this is going to be our views view. Okay, after organizing our files, let's move on to section 2. Create the row view. Now that we have our data, a list of landmarks, we can display this list in a row, a list. But first, to make a list, we need some row views. So the first view you'll build in this tutorial is a row for displaying details about each landmark. This row view stores information in a property for the landmark it displays, so that one view can display any landmark. Later, you'll combine multiple rows into a list of landmarks. Here is what our row will look like. We'll have an image, a text, and some spacer to finish off all the remaining space. Okay, let's start with step 1. Let's create landmark rows in the view group. Landmark row. Okay, let's go to the next step. I think we can close this landmark data sheets here, and I think this, we can collapse that. And as for the preview, let's create that canvas on the side somehow. There we go. And let's split this out a little bit to the side here. Perfect. Okay, let's move down back into our tutorial. So step 2, add landmark as a stored property of landmark row. When you add the landmark property, the preview in the canvas stops working because the landmark row needs a landmark instance during initialization. So to fix this, we're going to modify an instance of a landmark to preview. So we'll just grab the first one, landmarks at 0. The reason why we can grab landmarks is because it is a global variable in model data. As you can see, there is no struct, there is no class that's stored in. This is a global variable. Okay, so let's make that happen. No, that's actually a full-on landmark, not an array. This is one row, so we're gonna put it in landmark at 0. Perfect. That fixed, let's do a layout of the row and embed the initial view into an H stack. So we'll use a control and H stack. So with that, we'll modify text view to use landmark property names. And we're going to add an image in with the landmark.image. I'm going to resize it to 50 height and 50 width. And with landmark.image. And we're going to give it a resizable, and then we're going to give it a frame of width 50 and height of 50. Then we'll add a spacer in, and I think then we're complete with this section. Perfect. Let's look at a preview. Okay, so in our preview, it looks like there is a fatal error. There's a problem report. Just click OK. And let's take a look at the issue here. Well, we have a fatal error at line 17 and could not load landmark data in main bundle. So let's go to line 17, and we see that landmark data is not the full name of this particular file. This full name is actually, if you show in the Finder, it's .json. So we need to update that to .json. And okay, let's go back to the row, and I think that error should go away. Now, okay, we have a different error possibly, and so let's take a look at that. It is an array of landmarks. That's the issue here. And so simply what we need to do here is that it looks like this portion and the JSON file is different here. So it's coordinates, not coordinate. So we change that as well, and that should get us to run properly. Let's take a look at now. And it runs. All right, great. Let's move on to the next step. All right, so we're gonna go into section 3, I believe. Okay, and we're gonna customize the row preview. Xcode automatically recognizes any previews that you declare with a preview macro in the view source file. The canvas displays only one preview at a time, but you can define multiple previews and choose among them in the canvas. Alternatively, you can choose to group views together to create a single preview of more than one version of a view. So just add a second preview line with the macro and check out the second item. Okay, so this is the second item. This is our first item. Okay, given a preview name helps distinguish between them. So we'll call the first one Turtle Rock and create the second one Salmon. As you can see, the name is displayed here on top. Okay, we're going to remove the second preview. Instead, wrap the two versions into a row in a group. All right, let's see what that looks like. Okay, well, we put the two together. And let's create a list of landmarks in section 4. When you use a SwiftUI list type, you can display a platform-specific list of views. The elements of the list can be static, like the child view of the stack you created so far, dynamically generated. You can even mix static and dynamic generated views. Okay, let's start by creating that file landmark list in the view group. So landmark view list. Okay, we're gonna remove the default text and throw in the first two landmark rows and let it render. All right. Looks like the preview is not working. That's okay. Let's see. The next step. This is a static list at this point. Let's make this list dynamic. Instead of specifying the list elements individually, you can generate rows from a collection. So you can create a list that displays the elements of a collection by passing your collection of data and a closure that provides a view for each element in the collection. The list transforms each element into a collection into a child view by using the supplied closure. Okay, so here's the code. We create this list, we use this data, we use this particular ID, and use each landmark. And let's do a little reading to make sure we're not missing anything. So remove the two static landmark rows, instead pass the model data landmarks into the list initializer. List works with identifiable data. You can make your data identifiable in one of two ways: by passing along your data in a key path to a property that uniquely identifies each element, or by making the data type conform to identifiable protocol, which we have not done. So we're going to be using a particular ID in this case. So pretty simple. We're going to do a landmarks, and we're going to do an ID of type ID. Then we're going to take a landmark from each in, and that's the closure. So we're going to generate each item using the landmark row and create a row for each particular item in the array. So landmark row, take landmark. Perfect. Now let's simplify the list code by adding identifiable conformance to landmark type. So this is a protocol called identifiable, and this allows us to identify an ID that we'll be using. And it's already conforming to ID because we have the ID property required by identifiable protocol, and you just only need to add a property to decode it when reading the data. Okay, let's do that. So in landmark, we'll make this identifiable. And in our list, we no longer need this ID line of code. And perfect, it runs perfectly fine. So now we're gonna move on to section 6. All right, in section 6, we're gonna set up navigation between the list and the details. So when you click on the item in the list, we should be able to get to the detailed view. And this means that the list renders properly, but you can't tap individual landmarks at this point to see the landmark details page yet. So we're going to add navigation capabilities to a list by embedding it in a navigation split view, then nesting each row in a navigation link to set up a transition to a destination view. Let's see what that looks like. So we are going to create a view called landmark detail. I thought we'd create something like that already. Well, what happens is that we're going to copy the contents of the body property from the content view into a landmark detail view. So we're just going to copy it, all the code, and we're going to change the content view to display the linked list instead. And and then we're going to update the landmark list to display generically generate a list of landmarks in a navigation split view. Okay, hopefully we got all those steps together. So let's get started. So create a new file, landmark detail, copy everything from content view straight into our landmark details. Let's see, anything else? No. Then what we're gonna do is take landmark list and move it into our content view. Oh, whoops. So landmark list. And now we update our landmark list to use our navigation view. So how do we update it? We want to embed the dynamic generated list of landmarks into a navigation split view. The navigation split view takes a second input that's a placeholder for the view that appears after someone makes a selection. On the iPhone, the split view does not need the placeholder, but on the iPad, the detail panel can be presented before someone makes a selection, as you will see later in this tutorial. Okay, let's do that. So the code is just to say a piece of text, a placeholder. So navigation, split view, and details, text, select a landmark. And that's it. So add a navigation title. It's now possible to list so that we have a title. We're going to call this title landmark. Landmarks. And inside the list closure, wrap the return row in navigation link and specify the landmark details view as the destination. Okay, so let's see what that looks like. So that looks like a navigation link, and our details is the landmark row. That will take us straight to landmark details. Of course, at this point, it's not going to take us to the right one, but that's fine. Navigation link. And I believe it's a closure. And we're going to take us to a landmark detail view. And this is going to a label. And this is going to be a landmark row for our detail. So if you click this, it will take us straight to the turtle rock. Of course, what happens here is that every single item takes us to turtle rock. Okay, because it's hard-coded at this point. So we're gonna have to fix that. We'll do this in section 7, where we'll pass data into the child view. The landmark detail view still uses hard-coded details to show its landmark, just like landmark row. The landmark detail view type, and the views it comprises need to use a landmark property as the source of their data. Starting with the child view, you'll convert circle image map view, then the landmark detail to display data that passes it, rather than hard coding each row. Okay, and the circle image needs to change to store an image instead of a hard-coded image at this point. So we'll go do that. We call this circle view instead. So var image. I think it's a let though, but that's fine. Image. I think a var might be it makes a little bit more sense. So let's take a look at that. Oh, that's fine. They did a turtle rock instead image. I just pulled it straight from the landmarks. So update the preview to pass in the image of a turtle rock. Even though you fixed the preview logic, the preview fails because the build fails. The detail view, which instantiates the circle image, needs an input parameter as well. Really? Oh, okay. So let's go there and fix that. So map view, we're gonna add a coordinate to our map view to get the correct location. And in our preview, we're going to hard code it. Okay. Coord location coordinates 2D. And hey, my mouse has just stopped functioning. Copy the code, insert it in here. I think that will do it. So I think we do need to update this though. Fail to build schema landmarks because we need to fix our detail view. But this is not updated yet properly. So set this to coordinate and we are good to go. So pass the coordinate to the center parameter in the region variable. SwiftUI notices when the coordinate input to the view has changed and evaluates the body again to update the view. This in turn recalculates the region using the new input value. Step 5. Change the map initializer to one that takes a position input so that it updates when the value changes. The new initializer expects a binding to a position, which is a bidirectional connection to the value. Use a constant binding here, so because MapView does not need to detect when someone changes the position. So we're going to do a dot constant here. So this is our initial position. And instead, we're going to do position dot constant. Something's wrong here. Dot region dot region. Why is that? What does this do? Creates a new camera position, map camera position, I guess. And we need to put in the region. So this particular enum, right, takes in a region, MK coordinate region, which we have created here. And using this region, we put it into a constant, which takes in a value that is, well, immutable. So it's a binded value into our map position, which takes in a particular position, which is a binding to a map camera position, which we're not going to be moving, and therefore we can't display the map this way. Okay, we're still not done yet. We still need to update landmark details to pull in a, you know, dynamic data. So it's currently hard coded. And so let's add landmark here. And we're going to pass in the particular data that we want into landmark details. And we're gonna pipe in, pass in the required data to the custom type and all these places. And then we'll take the next step after that. So let's go to landmark details. Var landmark of type landmark. Then we're going to fix this by typing landmark dot location coordinates. Missing. All right, that looks good. Fix. We're going to do this landmark. Oh, we're going to set this to landmark, the first one. 0. And circle view, we're gonna do an image. We're gonna do landmark.image. Perfect. And we need to update all of these. Landmark.name. Hold on. Yeah, that was right. So this is landmark.location. Park. Landmark.state. I think this is landmark.name again. And lastly we have description. So landmark.description. I think that should be all of it. So there's still a failure here for some reason. Missing parameter in a call. Oh, yes. We still have not finished the job in the list landmark list. So we need landmarks. Okay, so with that, I think we can load this up properly. Look at the first item, looks fine. Look at the second item and third item and so forth. There's seems to be a bug here where it just kind of loads in slowly, so we're gonna have to look into that maybe later. Okay, so I think that does the whole job. Let's look at the next item. So we're gonna change the container from a VStack to a scroll view so that the user can scroll through a descriptive content at this point, and we no longer need a spacer. So where does the spacer go? I'm not sure, but let's go do that. I think that would fix the issue that we were having in the detail view. So the spacer goes away, and we're gonna put the VStack inside a scroll view. So the reason why we put an item into a scroll view is so that we can scroll. Earlier we couldn't, now we can. Look at that. And we're not getting that bug anymore. So if we go back to list and we load this thing, so everything looks completely fine. It's not pushing the content up anymore. Okay, let's go look at the next call. So something that's lacking here is you can see there's an empty spot here. This empty spot is probably going to be for our navigation title and our navigation bar title display mode, which is inline. So that's going to be our right here, and inside navigation title landmark dot name and navigation bar title display mode dot inline. So let's take a look at that, what that looks like. As you can see, it sets it right on top. Okay, perfect. All right, time for section 8. Okay, in section 8, we're going to generate previews dynamically. Next, you'll render previews of the list views for different devices configurations. By default, previews renders at the size of device in the active schema. You can render for different devices by choosing the targets or by overriding the device in the canvas. You can also explore other preview variations like device orientation. Okay, so change device selector to preview as an iPad, and we can see how the navigation split view performs. So iPad. As that's loading, let's see what's next. Tap the toolbar, review the sidebar, and try navigating to one of the landmarks. The detail view changes to the selected landmark under a sidebar, and the sidebar remains visible until tapped elsewhere. Okay, let's shrink this so we can all see it. So tap. Different bars for different things. Pretty quick. Okay. inside the canvas, device settings, you can do a landscape left orientation. And we can take a look at this as well. So let's flip it. Let's see. Orientation, landscape left on. Okay, great. We can view it this way as well. And experiment with different devices and configuration device settings to see how your device looks under different conditions. And that will bring us to the end where we can check our understanding of this module. So that would be chapter 1, part 2 would be complete. So a button that you can pick is dynamic type variants. And so this helps us see different ways of how the content will look on a different device. See how this looks on when someone sets the item to extra large, as well as color scheme variations. And we also have orientation variations here as well. Something that we don't have that I find to be quite annoying is that we don't have multiple different devices at the same time. We have to pick one device at a time. Hoping we could do something about that, but we can't with this particular macro, the preview macro. We will have to switch back over to our previous preview code that allows us to select multiple devices at the same time. And maybe someone knows how to do that with the macro, and it would be great if you can put that into the comment section below. We are done here with this particular portion of this tutorial. And so it will be great that you guys go over to check for understanding. And if you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.